This is episode 17 of the Gambling Still Sucks podcast. In this episode, I'll discuss how my compulsive behaviors pop up in other areas of my life and the pros and cons of that. Hey there, my name is Jamie. I am a compulsive gambler, and I'm also the host of this show. The last time I gambled was July 15th of 2010. So this is a cool episode. This is one that actually came up as a listener request. My good friend Duke, who's on the Discord, he actually sent me a message today. I'm recording this the day before Thursday. I normally have these kind of recorded ahead of time, but this one, I'll be honest, I was kind of stumped and didn't have anything. I have a lot of topics, but nothing was really kind of hitting me. And so that, and with my busy work schedule, I haven't had anything, but this popped up and it was great. And Duke had said, hey, you mentioned before that you're compulsive in other areas of your life. And he said, you know what, I can definitely relate to that. Can you do an episode on that topic? And so thanks, Duke. This is a fast request, quick turnaround for you, and I hope this helps. So as I mentioned, I do see my compulsive behavior pop up in other areas of my life. And there are definitely some pros and cons to that. And first, before I jump into the pros and cons, I wanted to touch on sort of what I've discovered to be sort of the origin or the foundation for my compulsive behaviors. And as I look back and kind of look back at my past, it's something that I've always kind of been very compulsive. I've always also been very competitive. And I've also had this need to do things perfectly, or to do them not even, like I say, not even to the best of my ability, but actually perfectly. And this kind of goes back as far as I can remember. So I don't know where this started, whether it was a situation of the household I grew up in or the environment I grew up in. We were definitely a very competitive family, and we expected a lot out of each other and of ourselves. And that's the case pretty much for everybody in my family. So maybe it was part of that environment, or maybe it's just something we're born with. And I think there's a possibility that we are just wired a little bit differently, that we have different things that trigger us and that really kind of, and that get us interested and engaged, because that's really kind of the foundation of my compulsive behaviors. They tend to be in things that I'm extremely interested in or I'm extremely engaged in. So that mix of competitiveness and the need to do things perfectly or better than other people, that kind of combines to create this compulsive behavior in me. So to answer Duke's question, what are some other areas that I struggle with my compulsiveness or my addictive personality? And I'll start off by saying that I feel very fortunate that I haven't had to seek out help for a 12-step program, similar programs like alcohol or drug addiction. I don't have any of sort of the quote-unquote traditional addictions outside of my gambling. And over the years, I've come to know that many people that struggle with compulsive gambling have also struggled with other addictions either prior to their gambling or after their gambling. There's definitely this kind of thing, like I say, it's part of how we're wired or how we work. And so it's very common to see people trade in one addiction for another. And that's something that I'm very mindful of. And I think that mindfulness has helped me sort of not go down a path to this point. But again, I have to always be on guard. So I don't have a traditional other addiction like drugs or alcohol. The one that I do sort of struggle with, and it's probably my number one struggle right now, is just food. I really like food, and I tend to like food that's not really good for us. And that's something that I'm very aware of, that I need to watch my intake. I definitely need to lose a few pounds. It's something that I think I eat for comfort, and that's not a good thing. So that's probably my one thing that I'm working on this year and really need to kind of dial in and focus on. Because that could definitely spiral out. I could see myself kind of going down that path deeper and deeper. And so that's something I want to definitely catch before it gets too far down the road. So we've kind of talked about the origins of what I consider my compulsive behaviors and sort of other addictions I might have or that other people commonly have. And the last thing I just want to kind of talk about are the pros and cons of compulsive behavior or having this kind of perfectionism, this need to do everything perfectly or better than other people. And I'll start off with the cons. First of all, it definitely can weigh on you. And when things are never going to be perfect. And it's something I definitely don't want to cut myself short and say, okay, hey, you can't aspire to do these great things. But I also need to be mindful of the fact that I'm not going to do it perfectly. I am going to fall short, and to look back and actually see the progress that's being made along the way. So that's something that I try to do. I try to check in with myself and look back and say, wow, you've come this far, because it's not wired into me to do that. I tend to see all of the bad things, all the shortcomings. I know people talk about this with social media. The common phrase, I believe, is that we see everyone else's highlight films and all we see are our bloopers. And that's so true. And I think especially with that perfectionism and the modern social media landscape, we tend to see everybody else's best stuff. They put out their best stuff. And inside, all we see are our blooper reels. And so we see those things that we're coming up short, and nobody else even sees them. So that's a big con with this perfectionism, this compulsive behavior. Also, just trying to take on too many things at once, it can absolutely wear me down. I can get to the point where I feel like I am completely zapped. One of the other things that kind of plays in with this compulsive behavior is a need to please people. I'm definitely a people pleaser. So when tasks are asked of me or I'm asked to help out with something, I feel a responsibility, a guilt, or just kind of a need to do that, to see it out. I value helping other people. And so I feel that I'm letting them down or I'm coming up short if I don't go all out or if I don't help them out. And then once I agree to say, yes, okay, I'll do this little thing, my compulsive behavior just won't let me do it 60%. It doesn't let me say, hey, you know what, this is good enough. I donated this project so it can be done. I say, no, it should be better. I can do this, I can do that. And working in marketing and advertising where things are constantly evolving and changing, projects are never done. It's something that is definitely a challenge for me. Take those things that I give away or that I help others with, and just let them be at a certain place. I don't need to see them through to completion, to perfection, to a point where we would be spending a lot of time and money to get them. So I need to be very aware of how many times I say yes. And I'm not good at this, but I'm trying to get better at saying no to some things or to eliminate some projects. And actually, you're listening to this podcast only because a few years ago, I decided to kill off some projects. They're projects that I'm also very interested in pursuing, but I realized that I couldn't do them all at once. And my compulsive behavior was definitely not going to allow me to do them at once. And you could say nobody should try and do too many things at once because obviously the projects won't move forward as fast. But I think it's especially true for that struggle with compulsive behavior because we just want to go all out and go all out and go all out. So those are a couple of the big cons. It's that I can just wear myself out. I can go overboard in projects. Things that people just ask for a small thing, I can try and do too much. I can try to give too much. And in doing so, I really push myself to the point of exhaustion, to feeling overwhelmed, to having anxiety, to having these other things kind of kick in, which really kind of get me down. And that leads to depression. And that leads to just feeling that you're not doing enough, that you're not helping enough. And like I said, that's where it's important to take a couple steps back and look and say, okay, hey, you did all of this. Pat yourself on the back a little bit and give yourself a little bit more credit and don't be so hard on yourself. So that's definitely one of those cons. And then let's finish up with some of the pros. I definitely see a lot of pros with compulsive behavior or addictive personality. But again, you have to be very, very aware of it. And that's something that I'm constantly trying to learn more about myself, to be both the scientist and the subject from the book Change Anything, and to really kind of dig in to figure out who I am to allow me to do more things. Because one thing that I definitely see is that when I get focused on a task and really dig in and become passionate about it, and as long as it's a positive thing, I mean, gambling was definitely a negative thing that I focused on. I had all the other check boxes are there. I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was a passion. It was all those things. But the financial fallout was extremely negative. And so if you can find other things that have positive outcomes, then you can really dive in and you can do great things. I look back, I was a compulsive golfer, definitely a compulsive athlete. Any of the sports that I played golf and basketball, and I gave up baseball. I used to play 3 sports, but I knew golf was my thing and that I wanted to devote more time to it. And so that's where kind of pairing off those other things and focusing on one thing can be very, very effective if it's harnessed properly and that you make sure that you're not shortchanging another area of your life. But yeah, for golf, I was at the golf course all day. and I worked and worked and worked, and I got very, very good at it. It was a skill that I became very, very adept at. Now, looking back now, I can definitely see there was some fallout. I didn't probably spend as much time with friends as other people, although I that's probably not completely true because I had a great group of golf friends, and we were together every day. Those were my closest friends. So maybe I had a smaller group of friends than people that kind of jump from thing to thing to thing and were involved in other things. But I definitely developed very deep relationships with the people that I play golf with. So like I say, golf was one of my things. School, the commitment to being great at things drove me to new heights. I mean, when we did flashcards in fourth grade, I remember I worked and worked and worked because I didn't want anybody to beat me. And so that inner drive is something that, like I say, when harnessed correctly and applied to things that are positive, maybe that's a business, maybe it's spending time with your family, maybe it's a side hobby. As long as you're kind of constantly taking a step back, and that's, I guess, the one thing I'm doing more of now than I ever did back when I was playing golf or in school, is taking a step back and saying, okay, I know I'm going all out in this, but am I letting other areas that are important to me fall by the wayside? And when I see that, I try to pull myself back or to free up time or devote time to those other things. And it's very, very difficult for me. Especially having 2 kids, it's very difficult, and working from home especially, to devote time for kids when work is so close. And it's like, oh man, I have this project. I'm really into it. I'm really working on it. But I just have to force myself not to. And so that's one thing I've been very good at about not working after hours. That's just kind of a unwritten rule that I've put in to protect myself from myself. But the compulsive behavior can help. I mean, I've self-taught myself web design. I've self-taught myself how to podcast. I self-taught myself all these different things, graphic design as well. And they're all just, I think, come from that inner urge, that compulsive behavior. When I started to learn the Adobe programs to do the graphic design, I went in and I studied them course by course. And I spent hours and hours really digging in and learning the proper ways to use the software. And the end result is that I'm very proficient with them and that I'm up and running. And that's an area of my business I've been able to add these other areas that are additional ways for me to make money and have revenue streams. And also just when I accomplish these new things, there's a sense of achievement, feeling good about these things. So that's definitely one of those pros, is that there is tremendous reward in creating things and digging in, starting with something that you know nothing about. And that compulsive behavior or that drive, that competitiveness can take you and push you to the end, past those times where it's really a struggle to get to the good stuff. And like I say, the key for me now is that I make sure that I'm doing things that I'm not going to regret. And I think that's probably the best way to sum this episode up, is just these behaviors can be very, very positive, but they can be equally negative. And I can't tell you which things to focus on, which things are things to really dig into, whether it's work, whether it's family. Only you can make that decision. But the one metric I try to use most is I try to fast forward. I try to fast forward 60 years into the future, when I'm either going to be dead or very close to dying, and say, okay, what am I going to regret? Looking back, am I going to regret that I worked from 8 to 12 o'clock at night on a project? And if the answer is yes, then I try not to do it. And if the answer is no, because it got me to a different place or pushed my family to a different place or allowed us to take an extra trip to Disney, that's the constant kind of back and forth that I play with my compulsive behaviors, and making sure that the positives balance out with the negatives. So that's probably the best advice I can give you on this topic, is just really study yourself. And I think we all know it. I mean, I knew it a couple weeks ago when I was trying to buy tickets for a show that was coming to town. And all of a sudden I look up and it's an hour and a half to 2 hours later, and I'm still trying to figure out how to get these tickets. Actually, my wife said, just be done with it. And after she said that, about 15 minutes later, I was finally like, okay, yes, you're being compulsive. You just need to be done with it. And so, like all other things in life, just being aware of it is the first step. And then just start to learn about yourself and project out in the future and say, okay, let's fast forward. When I get to, if I am able to get to this goal, am I going to look back and is this something I'm going to be happy with pursuing? Because I think the key for everyone is to pick one or two things, specifically one thing, and really focus on it. I think The one problem we all have in life right now is we have too many options. We have too many directions. So if we can focus on one thing, and if you want a great book on this, sorry to segue, The One Thing is an excellent book, as is Essentialism. Those are both really good books. They're very similar. They're almost the same topic. But check out those books because they're on this topic. If it's of interest to you, you'll love it. But dig into that one thing. Or if you decide that it's three things, just do it with the end in mind. Go to the end, look back. What are you going to regret? What are you going to regret doing? What are you going to regret not doing? And use that as the guide to help you rein in your current compulsive behaviors and direct your energy into the positive ones and put all that compulsive competitiveness into those positive things, while also making sure that you're not putting into things that are going to be negative, that are going to have side effects. And as I said, it's not just gambling. It's spending too much time on work. Or maybe it could be spending too much time with family. And then you get to a point where all of a sudden you can't pay your bills. And so all these things, there's give and take with all of them. And the key is just to understand yourself, learn from yourself, continue to grow. The things I know about myself now at 36, I had no clue at 25. And the things that I knew at 25, although I didn't know anything at 25. So I guess I'll just stop with that analogy. I'll go forward. I'm going to say at 46, I'm going to know way more things about myself than I did at 36. So I know a lot of you out there are very, very young, early 20s. If you don't have it all figured out, don't worry. Just keep learning. Be open and aware to the fact that you don't know everything and try and learn about yourself and grow. So Duke, I hope this episode helps you out a little bit, and I hope it helps everyone else. Like I say, compulsive behaviors, perfectionism, these are things that can be good or bad depending on how they're used. We just need to study ourselves and continue to grow. Now, before you go, I'd like to go over a few very important things. First of all, I think it's important to remember that problem gambling is a treatable disorder. There's no scientific evidence or study that suggests that this is just a terminal condition and that we're going to be forced to deal with the negative side effects and results of our actions for the rest of our lives. And so while I know that in the moment it feels like this is something that you're going to be struggling with for the rest of your life, science just doesn't back that up. Recovery is real, but we just need to seek out treatment. And so that brings me to point number 2, which is that help is available. Many of the states here in the United States actually offer free counseling and therapy for not only gamblers, but family members as well. And so you just need to know that these programs are available. And the best way to start finding out more information is to call the hotline number. And that's 1-800-522-4700. Again, that's 1-800-522-4700. And this is the number run by the National Council on Problem Gambling. And so it covers all 50 states, and they're going to have information and be able to start to guide you on the path to seek out help in the area where you live. And these hotlines aren't just available here in the United States. They're available around the world. So just simply open up a web browser, type in gambling help, gambling hotline, and you'll be able to find the information for your local area. In addition to the hotlines, there are numerous places where you can find gambling support and information online. If you go to gamblingstillsucks.com/help, I'll list some of these things, and I'll continue to add to this as I find new resources, whether they're chat groups or online forums or just great information. So again, that was gamblingstillsucks.com/help. As a disclaimer, this podcast does not provide legal or medical advice. Look, I'm not a doctor, a therapist, or an attorney. I'm just a guy who had a gambling problem. So while we'll discuss a lot of topics and I'll provide a lot of insight into what's worked for me, please seek out the help of a professional. Go visit a lawyer, a doctor, or a therapist to help you deal with your gambling problem. The information that we discuss is for informational purposes and should not be taken as professional legal or medical advice. And reliance on the information appearing on the podcast is solely at your own risk. The music for this podcast is Something Elated by Broke for Free and licensed under the Creative Commons.